Friends, I'm very happy to be in the Twin Cities and to meet all of you. I understand I was supposed to be here at 1 o'clock and I was supposed to give a talk here, but I gave the talk earlier somewhere else by mistake. Sometimes people can make mistakes. There's a great advantage in making mistakes, that if you make a mistake, you can correct it. If you don't make a mistake, then you can't correct it. Therefore, it's better to take a decision, even if you make a mistake, than just keep on saying, I won't make a mistake, I won't make a mistake, and not take a decision at all. Because you can't correct that. You can't correct indecision. So therefore, especially on the spiritual path, especially when we want to examine, is this the right path for us? And we keep on in a state of indecision. I'm not sure, I don't know, I'm not absolutely certain about this guy, I don't know about the path, I've seen so many things. And you keep indecisively living your whole life, you go nowhere. If, on the other hand, you make a mistake and follow a path which was not the best or right path for you, sooner or later you'll find out. And then you'll correct the mistake and go to the right path. Actually, you don't have to go to the right path. The right path must come to you. If you are a seeker. If you are a seeker, the right path comes to you, you don't go to it. A perfect living master is one who has advanced in his awareness of his consciousness to the level where he knows us in and out. If he doesn't, he's not a perfect living master. And if he knows us, he must know we are seeking. He must know we have made a mistake. He must know we have tried out something and now we want to try out something better. Then he must come to us and he must say, okay, now I've come at the right time. Now you're ready. On the spiritual path, the state of readiness is very important because it fixes a time in your life when you meet a perfect living master and you get accepted by him through a simple process we call initiation. Initiation is one with the knowledge and awareness of the truth, the ultimate truth, accepting you as a co-traveler on the same path that the master has taken and taking you to the same destination the master has reached. It is not a path to make you better. It's not a path to show you the way. It's a path where a perfect living master holds your hand, takes you back to your true home along with himself. There are many paths that I've heard of where they just tell you the way. Just find your way, this is how it is. But I like the path where whoever says, come, I show you the way, say, come along with me. A master should be able to accompany us, do what he asks us to do. This is very important. If a master has not done what he asks us to do, we will never succeed. Because a master's voice, his language, only has impact upon our hearts, upon our souls particularly, if he is speaking from his own experience. If he is speaking from book knowledge, just learned something from somewhere, anybody can describe things in story form, but a master's words affect us. The stories don't affect us so much. There was an author who wrote a novel, a story, in which there was a scene of a house on fire. And he wrote almost a whole page, how the fire leapt out of the windows, the smoke billowed out, and all that very poetic language. One reader of the book wrote to him, I like your book, the novel was great, except that page where you described the house on fire. Fire never comes out billowing from the windows like that. Fire goes up along the smoke, comes up differently. And if you like, I can write that page for you and tell you how a fire looks like. So the author said, thank you very much. Can you write out that page for me, how a fire looks like when a house is on fire? Then that guy wrote a page and sent him. And the author revised his book and incorporated that page. Then he wrote to that man, I have accepted your advice, and whatever you wrote, I have put into my revised edition of my book. The truth is, I had never seen a house on fire. The man wrote back, so haven't I. So he can write books from anywhere. But it doesn't have impact. Some books have an impact on us, and some we read like a novel. We just read like a story. Similarly, we hear so many discourses. We hear people talk about things, about there is no words to talk about, but we still hear them. But only those words affect us, where we feel that this is something we have been waiting to hear, this is something we have been waiting to go to, this is something that from childhood we had a feeling one day we need it. This is something we wanted because what we have now is not what we wanted. If these feelings are not there, there will be no impact and there will be no value. The truth is that perfect living masters come to us because of our seeking inside, not seeking outside. Even if you have been running around to various places looking for truth, they don't respond to that. They respond to an inner seeking. Where you say, I have tried all this, but I want something more real. I want something more satisfying. I got this, it only worked this far. I want something more. But no time or no effort is wasted. Don't think that if you make a mistake, that mistake is going to go waste. You learned something. We always learn from our mistakes. I used to work for the government at one time, and people were afraid. I replaced a boss who was very particular. Nobody should make a mistake. He would cut their marks, give a black mark, and sometimes hold up their promotion. I replaced him, and I said in my very first meeting with those guys, make as many mistakes as you can. They were surprised. I said, if somebody comes up to me and says, I've never made a mistake, I know he has never done any work. Therefore, mistakes should be accepted. To err is human, to forgive divine. Now, if somebody makes a mistake, don't judge him. When we start judging, we get into trouble with that person and also with ourselves. Judgment is not necessary for good life. We try, unless you are a judge on the bench in a court, then you have to judge. But otherwise, to judge people all the time, pass judgment, give your opinion, how good or bad they are, doesn't help you at all, nor does it help the other person. It doesn't help anybody. So judgment, if you want to judge somebody, spend some time understanding if you were that person, what would you do? Would you act differently? If all the circumstances of yours were the same as the person you are judging, you will stop judging. We are all trapped in our own situations, and it's a big trap. It's a trap created by our own actions, by our own attitudes, which we seem to have brought right from birth. Many of these things happen because we are born in a certain place and a certain time. The astrologers tell us, they look at the chart and say, this is your destiny. Obviously, the destiny of all of us seems to be different. Some people are doing better than the others. Some people are in a bad state in poverty, some are in riches, some are in a state of ill health, some are very healthy. So this destiny which these astrologers look at from our charts, They say it depends on the time, date, place of birth and the planetary position. Something external to us is determining our destiny. That the destiny is rising in the sky. Of course it is arising in the sky. I can assure you that. Our destiny is made up in the sky, but not in the sky. Not in the sky which you look at in the heavens. It's made up in another sky. If you want to see where the sky is, the sky can be found within yourself. And the sky's color is different than the sky here. That's very bright sky. Orange colored, golden colored, like the color of a setting sun. If a setting sun were to be stretched out into the whole sky, that's where the sky, where our destiny is being made. Where is the sky? People have seen that sky. They've seen in meditation. They have seen by withdrawing their attention away from this sky and entering another sky where there is no darkness, and a third sky in which the destiny is being made. Indeed, we all picked up our destinies from there. In our ancient records, we call them the Akashic or Akashic records. Akash means sky. The records are kept in the sky. And what kind of records are these? These records are like DVD, like tapes, where the whole thing is written up. Where you will be born, what you will be doing, what actions you will do, what good and bad you will do, which you will consider good and bad, and make it good and bad, and when you will die, and the show will end of one lifetime. But it also says, the same tape says, you cannot have any of these events unless there is a past life to create it. So, when you pick up a destiny of one life, you have to pick up another past life also. It doesn't matter if you had a past life or not. You can't have a present life without a past life. Therefore, when you pick up a DVD of a lifetime as your destiny, you pick up the past life also. And past life needs another past life. In fact, you can't have any life without a past life if the destiny is explained by the law of karma, that you must have performed certain actions to have this reaction. And if that is necessary, that you must have done something either to be rewarded and enjoy life or to be punished for something wrong you did, there has to be some other time frame in which you did these things. So what a wonderful system there is, that you want to pick up one lifetime just to have fun. I suppose we came for fun. I want to have a little interruption here to the train of thought I am going into, to tell you that I don't believe we came here to suffer. Nobody likes to suffer. I think we came here to have fun. We thought it was a great adventure. We thought that will be great. We were willing to go to the ups and downs of life, because unless there are downs, there are no ups also. So we're willing to have ups and downs, good roller coaster rides also. We didn't mind that. Just like a carnival. We wanted to go into a new carnival, have good time. And somehow we got trapped somewhere and forgot that we had just come for a short time, just come for enjoying and having fun. So therefore our problem came because the method of entering this place for carnival, the ticket we had to pay, ticket we had to buy to get into the carnival, required that you pick up a destiny from the red sky, from the Akashic records. And you have to pick up that destiny in order to come, and destiny here is governed by the law of action and reaction, law of karma. Do good, you are rewarded, do bad, you are punished, and therefore this whole package of one life has to be built upon actions and reactions of a past life. So we had to carry a real past life which we will experience here, plus infinite number of past lives which sustain that one life. And also there will be a shadow of the current life to create another one, because this life is all complete. that we'll do this, we'll do that. There has to be a consequence of that. So we'll carry the next life and the next. So we carry infinite number of future lives. Now, looks pretty okay. This is just a method of entry. Method of entry into this carnival adventure land we thought is a physical plane of activity or experience. Having come here, we thought the past lives were real too. We thought future lives are real too. We didn't take it as one life. And the more books we read, the more discourses we heard, especially from Eastern philosophers, the more we got worried about karma. Oh, this is terrible. Our karma, we are all paying our karma. When we entered, there was no karma at all. Our souls never had karma. Never had, never will. What is this business of karma coming from? Where did this karma come from? It came from the same place where we picked our destiny from. It came from the Akashic records where all causes were determined. We call that region, which has that orange sky, we call that region the causal region. And we call our state there as consciousness or soul, which has now put on a uniform, put on a costume, which is good for creating the conditions necessary for the destiny we are picking up. In other words, we picked up a dress upon ourselves, a nice costume called the human mind, the thinking mind. Thinking mind was not us. We were consciousness. We were the power that makes everything conscious. We were life. We could give life to anything. We could give life to the body, life to mind, life to senses. We could give life. We were the life-giving force, the consciousness. We just took up a costume called the mind, and that costume was necessary to play out the role, to play out the DVD which contained destiny of one life. We come here and we find that the destiny and karma was created by that very costume. We didn't have any. Karma was built into the costume, which was the mind, which could think. Not only think, it could think, and behind the thinking machine lay a little chamber, which was judgmental chamber, called conscience, which could tell us this is good, this is bad. It was necessary to have that. Otherwise, how could you create a roller coaster in your destiny? So you had a conscience to create your own morality, to create good and evil. It came with the mind. Good and evil, morality, all came from the mind. Soul had none of this business. We were pure soul, consciousness per se, but adding on this costume and bringing our destiny here, picked up our destiny and entered into an area where, had we remembered that we have come for one life and we should go back home, we stayed on and got caught up, and what looked like a notional future life became a real life. And we got into the cycle of life after life after life. We created it. We didn't need it. We just created and got trapped in it. And the mind, which we thought was great, it was great. It's the best computer, the best instrument I can ever imagine. The human thinking mind. It thinks, creates language, creates spoken and unspoken language. It is used for communication, used for reasoning, rationalization. It's used for communication amongst people. It communicates with yourself. It enables you to speak. You never spoke before. It wasn't necessary. Soul never speaks. It's not necessary. Why should the soul speak? For what? Only the mind speaks. And in order for the soul to communicate through the language of the mind, it began to use the mind to speak. Imagine our original state. We are the soul, the unit of consciousness arising from the totality of consciousness where we are all one. We individuate for an individuated experience of the many in the one. We experience the many by individuating into souls. And then to delve into an adventure land, we put on the costume of the mind. and get into karma, morality, good, bad, punishment, reward. All the system comes up. It was never there. And we speak. But one good thing we retained, that whereas the mind can speak, it cannot hear. Only the soul can hear. Soul still retained the capacity to listen, whereas the mind took up the capacity to speak. If you want to know inside your head, in your consciousness, where is the soul, where is the mind, where is the distinction, close your eyes and say, who is speaking? That's the mind. Who is listening to what the mind is speaking? That's yourself, your soul. It's very easy to find out that the listening capacity of the soul was enabled throughout our adventure land and never gone. Even now it's still there. It was good to use the mind. It was very useful thing to use the mind. But we made one little mistake. Instead of using the mind, we asked the mind, what shall we do? That's not using the mind. Using the mind means giving instruction to the mind what to do. Instead of our consciousness telling a thinking machine what to think, we began to say, what are you thinking? I'll do that. We became slaves of a machine. And we put the mind ahead of ourselves, with the result that the mind, which created judgment, which created karma, which created good and bad, which created an experience of free will because of lack of knowledge, because when we came into this world, that was not the only costume we wore. We put another costume on top of it. To expand the activities of the mind, we put on a costume which created sense perceptions. That means the mind that was capable of perceiving things directly, grasping anything, now grasps things by looking at them, listening, touching, smelling. It just divided itself by a new costume, which we call the astral costume. The astral body is nothing else but a system of sense perceptions built into consciousness. Don't think there's a body there. The body, physical body is like this. The astral body is merely the ability of consciousness to operate through the mind and sense perceptions. That is the astral body. Causal body is no body at all, it's just the mind. Thinking mind is the causal body. But when we put on that costume of the causal body and got into these different ways of perception, then we decided to put on a real big one. This is the big one we are wearing, heavy stuff, heavy costume of the physical body. And one thing to make it interesting, and I don't know where it came from, but it came that the idea of surprise is great. We love surprises. We thought all surprises will be pleasant, but they're not always pleasant. In order to have a surprise, you must cut off knowledge. If you already know, you can never have a surprise. So we decided to cut off knowledge of what's going to happen tomorrow. Indeed, we cut off knowledge what's going to happen next second. We cut off all knowledge of future, just speculated. Could be this, could be that. And whatever happened was surprise. We converted our whole life into a surprise by becoming ignorant. A deliberate ignorance of the future, because only in this ignorance could we get a surprise, and only in a surprise could we think what we should be doing. If we knew what has to happen, the carnival was very simple, that we could ride. What is that ride that goes round and round and horses go up and down? Merry-go-round, where the horses, you sit on the ride, enjoy it, but you know where it's going. You never say, should I now change my direction of the horse or not? They're fixed. But once we put a big blanket in front, maybe this horse might go this way, might go this way. We created a very beautiful new experience called free will. If you have no surprise, if you have knowledge, how can you have free will? If today we knew what's going to happen the next second, next hour, and tomorrow, and the whole life, free will disappear. Free will only comes when you don't know what you're going to do and you decide. And the trouble is with free will is that when we say, Should I go right or wrong? Should I go north or south? Should I go do this or that? When we say, okay, I'll do this. If without knowledge we feel it's a decision we are making now, and we open up our DVD and find the DVD says at this time and at this place you will say, should I go here or there? Should I do this? And that's what you will do. What looks like choice making is written up there. Actually, everything is written up. But we divided it here. We divided our life into two parts. That which is destined, we can't do anything about it. And that where we felt we can do something about it, we can make our own choices. This division was very vital to the activity of the karmic law. The law of karma merely said, if you feel you should do this and you think it is good, you'll be rewarded. If you feel this is bad and you still do it, you'll be punished. And it did not take into account that it had already been written up there. You allowed yourself to be rewarded and punished based upon your current experience, totally forgetting it is written up already in the destiny. So what happens? You got an experience of free will. That was a very great experience. Still is. Free will is the greatest experience a human being can ever have, because it makes you make a choice. At least you feel you're making a choice about your own destiny, as if your ability to make a choice is so free that nobody knows what you're going to do. Of course, somebody knows. Somebody has to know. Otherwise, there is nobody. Then how can we call God omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent? If he is omniscient, omniscient means knows everything. If he doesn't know what we are going to decide, and we have such free will that even God doesn't know, then we are superior to God. He is ignorant and we have free will. But if God knows already what decision we are going to make, and we think we are making the decision, then God, of course, knows, but our free will is an illusion. We feel it's free, it's actually not free. When I was going to school at Harvard University, I had a colleague of mine who was examining this issue of the dispute on free will. Do we have or not? Because there were so many issues about it. If we don't have free will, why are we being punished? Why is there karma? Well, how can there be karma if we have no free will? It's all destined. And whoever has written up the script, let them be punished. Of course, we never realized we wrote up the script also. But anyway, he one day found out, just based on this question of divine omniscience, that if whoever is the creator knows everything, then we cannot have free will. He must know what we are going to decide. In that case, our free will is merely an experience. So he called me in the morning and he said, Ishwar, found the great truth, Eureka, we have no free will. I said, how did you find it? He said, because of this basis. I studied and found out that every religion in the world believes there's a God who knows everything. By different names, different words, they are using it, but they all believe there is an all-knowing power. If the all-knowing power knows everything, how can we have free will? They must know what we are going to decide. I said, come to my apartment and we'll discuss it here. So I played a trick on him. Before he came, I prepared a tray with 3 cups on it. One with coffee, one with tea, and one empty. When he came, I said, friend, will you have tea, coffee, or nothing? I got all 3 ready. And don't use free will, you don't have any. He was shocked. He said, you destroyed my whole knowledge with just 3 cups? I said, I am going to prove to you that you not only have free will, you cannot avoid free will. You're trapped into free will. Whether you say, I don't want anything, free will. I take coffee, free will. Tea, free will. He said, you completely stumped me. I came up with the conclusion that we really don't decide anything. And now you are proving that we have to decide all the time. So karma is being forced upon us because we have to decide. If somebody says, I don't want to decide, there's karma on that. It's a decision made by free will. When he got so upset with me that I destroyed his great discovered knowledge, then I said, I'll take the devil's side. I'll take the other side now and prove to you there's no free will, even at the physical level. I told him, when you make a free choice, you say, I want, okay, first make a choice, I told him. He said, okay, I'll have coffee. I said, now, I'll explain to you, there is no way you could have chosen anything but coffee if you acted freely. If you didn't act free, then you could have taken anything, but if you had free will which you used, you only had to take coffee. Now why? Because when we make choices, it's not in the vacuum that we make choices. There are some factors in our head already existing which help us to decide what to choose. Every time we make a choice, there's something already in our head guiding us how to make a choice, what's right or wrong, or whichever way to go. Now in choosing between coffee and tea or nothing, you chose coffee. There could be two kinds of factors that could affect you in choosing coffee. One, it's in your genetics, hereditary tendencies. Your father drank coffee, your grandfather, great-grandfather, somebody drank coffee, it's gone into your genes and your DNA. You had nothing else but the pressure on you to take coffee. The other is environmental, that you have been among coffee drinkers and they induced you to have coffee, you became a coffee drinker. There is no third factor. If you examine carefully, there is no third factor that makes us make choices. If we make a free choice with free will, these are the only two factors that come into play, which we call free. And I said at this time, you can't change your genetics, you can't change your DNA, and nor can you change the environment through which you have passed up to this point. Therefore, you had no choice but to make only one choice. Looked like a choice. It wasn't. So therefore, free will is merely an experience. But it is such a great experience that's been likened to man being closest copy of God himself. They say man has been made in the image of God. What does that mean? It doesn't mean God has eyes and ears and face like us. God is a power. The only similarity between God and man is that he has real free will by which the whole show was set up, and we have the experience of free will as part of that show. Therefore, we are similar to that because of the experience. But that's not all. The experience of free will is very vital for us to become a seeker. Otherwise, we are trapped in a show and go from page to page of this book, chapter by chapter, and die. In between, this free will plays, and we say, I am fed up of this, I want to find out the truth. I want to go back home. This is not my home. These feelings come up which make you a seeker. Seeker, to seek, is a play on free will. Therefore, the very fact that you have an experience of free will makes you a seeker, and if you seek, you will find. It's as simple as that. But don't stop seeking. If you seek the truth, the highest truth, and somebody shows you something halfway, take it. He's taking you in the right direction. And when you reach halfway and you feel you are not satisfied, keep on seeking. Finally, it is the duty, it is the role of a perfect living master about whom I speak to you, to meet the seeker and take him back home, if you are still seeking. Therefore, it's the seeking that leads to this. In India, we say, when the chela is ready, the guru appears. They never say when the chela is ready, can find a guru. And then nobody can find a guru, I tell you, because there is no sign. And if there was a sign, somebody had put on a forehead, I am a guru, we would have millions of gurus. Even without the sign, there are millions of gurus. So, and those who claim to be gurus and they assert their gurus. Where are they living? They're asserting something physically here, then their whole domain is over here. If they're trying to convince us over here, we are so and so, we are so and so, and their physical ego is being projected like that, they don't go anywhere. They may be very learned people, but to have a higher awareness, a person who has the highest awareness knows everything about everybody, because everybody is one. And that's the picture which he can see. From that point of view, does he have to announce who he is? Not at all. Does he have to prove that he is? Not at all. If he knows the seeker better than the seeker knows himself, he doesn't have to prove anything. Just pull the seeker back home. It's as simple as that. The role of a perfect living master is not to teach us anything, but to take us back home. Remember this. There are a lot of teachers, and then there are perfect living masters. Teachers come to teach. Perfect living masters don't come to teach, they take us back home. But then our mind wants to be taught. We are so trained to that. Somebody is taking us home, he says, wait, first tell me the way. Sometimes we want to be taught a lot before we go home. So they become teachers also. But sometimes we want to be taught so much that we waste a whole lifetime trying to be taught. There's a story of a man. Sometimes we tell these stories, it makes a point. Story of a man in India, in a village. You know, villages have wells with no parapet walls, nothing, and they just dug up directly. And there's a tendency one can fall into it. One intellectual guy was walking and he fell into a well. He was moaning and groaning. Fortunately, the well was not very deep. He was still in the water. And his moaning and groaning was heard by a passerby who came and said, "Come on, hold on, I'll help you. I'll bring a rope and take you out." He said, "First, hold on. First, explain to me why I fell here." He said, "I don't know why you fell. I only know that you are fallen and now I want to take you out." "No, but how am I sure you'll go and bring a rope? And even if you bring a rope, how am I sure you lower it to pull me out? And even if you lower the rope and I start climbing, how am I sure you won't drop me down again? Answer all these questions and then I'll let you go and bring a rope." He said, "Can't we discuss all these things after you come out of the well? You are in a bad shape already. Let me bring a rope." So he went away to bring a rope, and this man is still thinking, how can I trust him? I have some doubt about him. So the man brings the rope and lowers it. He said, "Now first convince me that you will not drop me down." He said, "If I had to drop you down, why did I bring the rope?" He said, "You might be interested in dropping me down. I don't know." The story is just, he says, "Look, if you want to stay in the well, stay here. I leave the rope here." And he walked away. When we have questions, intellectual questions, which create so much doubt, and we are not willing to take a leap of faith at all, we can spend a whole life on seeking and not finding anything. Therefore, seeking doesn't stand by itself. Seeking is carried on with a certain amount of faith, and that faith comes not from rationalization. The faith does not come by intellectual conviction. Faith comes from love and trust of a person. If you feel true love coming from a person, you trust that person. There's nothing that creates real trust and faith than the experience of love with a person. Fortunately, love does not arise from the mind, nor from the senses, nor from the body. It arises directly from our soul. Therefore, if a perfect living master has to take us back home where our soul belongs, his method will be through love. He'll pull you with his love. And you will trust because he is pulling you with unconditional love. His love has no conditions whatsoever. All the love that we talk of in this physical world is really attachment, which we call love. There's a big distinction between love and attachment. In attachment, the ego plays a big role. In attachment, you have to say, I love you. I is very prominent when you say, I love you. In fact, I is more prominent than you. Because if you say, but I don't love you, then I says, I hate you too. So what kind of love is that, where the I plays such a big role, the ego plays a big role? What happens in real love? I'm not saying there's no real love in this world. Plenty of it. In real love, you forget the I. The beloved occupies that space in your head where the I was sitting. And you can think of the beloved and not necessarily of the I. And therefore, in pure love, you identify. For a while being, you put your ego in the back bench and you identify with the beloved, which is a very different experience. In other words, in attachments, you experience at the most togetherness. In love, you experience oneness. It's a very basic difference in the two. Love pulls you. And that love of a perfect living master is so unconditional. He does not love you for what you give him. He doesn't say, what have you done for me lately? He doesn't ask those questions. He loves you if you love him. He loves you if you don't love him. He loves you if you hate him. He loves you if you kill him. That's not common, but that's the quality of a perfect living master. That's the unique quality of unconditional love, and it's that which really pulls us and eventually takes us beyond the mind, because that love is coming from the soul and is pulling our soul from here, not pulling our body and mind and sensory systems, which are only for experience here, for a joyride here. We use these mind, senses and body only for the ride in the carnival. They were not designed to be permanently with us. We were supposed to leave all these behind and go back home. We put on different costumes to have different experiences. You could shed off one costume and have another experience. We do have. We have experience of a lower kind of game, lower kind of play, which we call dreams. When we go to sleep, we have a dream. In the dream, we run around. It's a different body. The sleeping body is lying in the bed and we're running around. What is common between the sleep body and the body that's awake? Only one thing is common. The feeling of self is the same self that is sleeping, the same self is running around the dream, and the same self will be running when we are in the mind alone, same self will be in the soul. Same self will be in the totality of consciousness, which is our true home. The self never changes. It's the persistence of the self that creates a direct connection between all levels of creation. If the self changed, we would have lost somewhere. But the self is always the same. We play games at the physical level, sometimes dipping into dreams. Dreams can be terrible sometimes. They can be nightmares. Some of us have very bad dreams. And in the dream we can cry, scream, and wake up and say, thank God it was a dream. Don't you realize that even if life is bad here, when we'll wake up from this one, we'll also say, thank God it was just a dream. And we worry so much about the negativity and all bad things happening here. Thank God you wake up from it and say it was a dream. There was no reality in it. So that is why we created these experiences, and each cover we put on ourselves creates a different experience. These three covers create a unique experience. The cover of the mind, the cover of the sense perceptions, which we call the astral body, mind we call causal body, and the physical body. These create an experience of a material physical world, which is a great experience. The only experience in the entire creation which we have an experience of free will. Human being in this physical world being the only creation, only species, only form of life in which we can experience, though only an experience, but still it's an experience of free will. The soul which we talk of, life force which creates life, is in everything, in the plants, it's in the insects, it's in the birds, it's in the animals, it's in us, it's in angels, it's in gods, goddesses, it's in everybody. Soul is the living power. Soul is what gives us life. Soul is what makes you conscious to a certain degree or to a greater degree. The plants may have lesser consciousness, active consciousness. We may have little more than that. And angels in the astral plane may have even more consciousness. But it's the same soul, the same life-giving property of consciousness that's making it happen. But they don't make decisions. Plants don't make decisions. Animals don't make decisions. They act on their built-in instincts. They act immediately on their instincts. They don't sit and say, should I or should I not? Only human beings do that. Should I or should I not? On the one hand, it creates karma. It creates actions which are good or bad. When you say, should I or should I not? It puts you into responsibility for your actions. Even though the script has been pre-written for your life, and destiny is fully determined in advance, predetermined. By this act of going through, should I do it or not, you're taking full responsibility for a script that is already written, and you think it's your responsibility taken now. Therefore, karma comes back, and you say, yeah, I'm suffering because of my karma. Think for a moment, if at this very moment you could get the consciousness of who you are, and not your costumes. If you could know mind is merely an adjunct to consciousness, mere an accessory provided for your enjoyment and for use, and senses are also to have a larger experience, and the physical body is to make material world more real. Supposing these three, you understand, are not you. Karma ends. You just participate in a show. You're participating in a movie. We go to see movies. Sometimes we go and see horror movies. I wonder why a person pays $7, $10 to see a horror movie. We go to see tragedies. We go to see murders taking place on the screen. And while we are seeing the movie, we are sitting in the audience, looking at the screen in front of us, and somebody is having a very bad tragic event taking place, and we are crying sitting there in the audience, forgetting completely it's just a movie. What happens to us? How come we take the movie so seriously and begin to believe it is real? It's a Greek philosopher who gave an answer to this, Aristotle. Aristotle said that drama, at that time there were no movies incidentally, but drama was there on the stage. He says drama is created so that we can suppress our disbelief, take it as real. Because only by taking it real can we identify with the characters and get excess of our emotions resolved. As if it is a useful thing to see drama. We go to see a movie and cry in the movie. At that time we forget it's a movie. Otherwise we wouldn't cry. If we knew it's just shadows, and we wouldn't cry, but we laugh, cry, filled with emotions. And we also say, what's next? What's going to happen next? We know it's the same movie running every day. And still we say, now let's see what's going to happen next. I remember a poor village boy once came to the town in India, and for the first time he saw a movie. In that movie there was a scene where a girl is going to take off her clothes and jump into the pool. And he just watches taking off the clothes, but a train comes in front and passes by. By the time the train has gone, the girl is in the pool. He never gets a chance to see. He came 20 times to see the movie, hoping that one day the train will be late. We are watching the train the same way. It's no different. We are thinking now it will change. Destiny does not change. If we had to relive this whole show again, it still be the same. But we think, no, we won't do it next time. If we get another chance, we won't do it. You see, we have been given chances all the time. I tell you a little story about chance, just to relieve the, it's too heavy stuff what I'm talking about. To lighten it sometimes. In this country, I heard when I first came, they said that blondes are stupid. I didn't believe that. Perhaps I still don't believe. How can the color of the hair determine whether you are stupid or intelligent? It's not possible. But then a guy arranged a big conference to prove that blondes are not stupid. He called 100 blondes to a meeting. And he said, I am going to prove to you that blondes are not stupid. So he said, any volunteers? And a young girl raised her hand. So he called her to the stage. And he said, I am going to ask you a simple question so everybody can listen. How much is 10 and 15? Add them, how much is 10 plus 15? A blonde girl said, she made some face like that, like most blondes make. And she said, oh, is it 22? And he said, give her another chance. And the whole audience said, give her another chance. So he gave another chance. How much is 10 plus 5? She said, 12. He said, let's give one more chance. Give her another chance. Oh, the whole audience said, give her another chance. He said, what is 2 plus 2? She said, 4. The whole audience said, give her another chance. Anyway, this was just an aside. We get chances in life. We are always having a second chance, always having another chance. But we get caught up in that. This law of karma is such that we do not see how it operates, and we take upon ourselves the responsibility of its plus and minus things. Imagine the value of self-realization, the value of finding out who we are. This whole thing becomes a show which you know is a show all the time. All the time you'll be acting on it. You won't change the act. A good actor does not suddenly interrupt his acting and become a bad actor. But you will know you are an actor. Right now we don't know we are actors, but we are actors. We are such good actors in this show and have learnt our script so well. And to make it certain that we forget that we are acting and are real, it's real. Good actors have to feel that it's really not an act, but their real life. Ben Kingsley acted in a movie called Gandhi. Some of you might have seen the movie. In an interview later on, he said, for 6 months prior to the shooting of the movie, he every day had to pretend and learn he's Gandhi. Till he began to feel he is Gandhi. Then he said, now shoot the movie. A good actor is one who doesn't think he's acting, but it's real. Imagine how good actors we all are. We all think we are real. We are the best actors because we don't even consider this an act. Taking the example of the movie again, which Aristotle says is necessary, because what he calls is, translating into English from his Greek, he says, when we watch a show to identify with it, we have a willing suspension of disbelief. It's something willingly we do, a willing suspension of disbelief. We would normally not believe it's real. We willingly, for the time being, while we are watching, we suspend it. Why? For a catharsis of excess of emotions. So our own emotions can identify with it, we can cry, laugh, and feel lighter. That's the purpose of this kind of entertainment. We totally forget that the movie on the screen is merely a shadow, that the real thing is behind us in the projector. We totally forget that it's the light behind the film that's creating a shadow right in front and which we are taking as real. It's identical with the situation here, that we have this light of consciousness inside us, passing through the mind's frames of a destiny, creating this scene in a multi-dimensional screen, a show in a multi-dimensional screen. And we are watching the screen so tightly that we forget who we really are and where the show is taking place. Light is inside. Mind creating the destinies in front of it. The shadows being cast are on this outside. And we are taking it all as real. We don't look back in the movie theater. We don't look inside here. But if we don't like the movie, we should at least for some time treat it as a movie and get out of it. That's what I feel in this movie. If you don't like it, at least change the reels, change the DVD. We picked it up. We have the choice to change it. In fact, there are only 3 stages where we feel we can make a choice. One, in totality, the Creator, which is our own total self, which is our own reality. At that time, whatever show is set up right there. There is no time, no space. It's spread out by time and space here, but the show is one single moment of creation. Their free choice to make any creation. Second time we get an experience of free will is when we come from the spiritual, individual soul level to the level of the mind, in the causal plane, and we pick up our destiny. That's a free choice. Thirdly, we make free choices when we are in the physical world as a human being, because then we get subject to the law of karma by that free will. When we choose our destiny, I told people we all chose our own destiny. They said, how could we choose such a horrible life? How could we? Again, we were not blondes or something, or not stupid. Or how did we make that mistake of picking up this life? I said, you didn't see one life. You saw that this one life leads to another life, leads to another life, and at the end there's an escape. A perfect living master appears in your life there and takes you back home. Pick that one up. Little roller coaster up and down, doesn't matter. That's how we picked it up. We did not pick up based upon one life, we picked it up on what future holds for us, which we could see there. These are different levels of consciousness through which we go. Somebody asked me that you have said in one of your talks that each level looks like the end, like it's the beginning. Each level looks like it is Sachkhand, it's our true home, which is true. Each level looks like our true home. Somebody takes us to the first level and we see everything being created from there, and there's a God sitting there on a throne. So this is true home. As depending on what our belief system here is, we give that God some different names. But there's a God sitting there on a throne in a palace, running the whole show of that level as well as this level. How could you ever imagine there's anything more? It looks like it's the end. If you happen to go beyond, then you find that that was a created thing. And there are 2 levels of creation. You go to the 3rd level, you find the universal mind, that all minds were one, that all karma was generated from one mind, that all these different DVDs are a product of one mind, not several, and that our individual mind is merely individuated from there. And we say this must be the end. We reach the universal mind. What can be beyond that? So, if somebody takes us there, says this is your Sachkhand, we believe it. This is our true home. Somebody says no, there's something beyond, and able to convince us that this is not even your soul what you are seeing, this is your mind. Well, we didn't know there was a difference between mind and soul, because most of the time we said, I think, therefore I am. Only some guys said, no, that's not true. The truth is, I am, therefore I am, and I have a mind that can think. But most people don't say that. So they think that the soul and the mind are the same. How do we know? Okay, the big distinction. The mind acts only in time and space. Soul acts out of it. Any example? Yes. Try to think of any thought which doesn't take time. You can't think. But soul can have intuitive knowledge. It just comes like a hunch at once, no time. All intuition comes from the soul. All thinking comes from the mind. Intuition needs no time. Thinking needs time. All love comes from the soul. Attachment comes from the mind. All beauty seen together comes from the soul. All analytical beauty to break up and see things comes from the mind. Analysis comes from the mind, synthesis comes from the soul. There's clear distinctions between two of these things inside our consciousness, sitting all the time and functioning together. once we know that there's a distinction, then somebody can say, okay, find the soul, not the mind. You only found the mind in the universal mind state. So somebody can take us beyond, then we say, we found the soul. What else can be beyond that? That looks like a true home. He found our spiritual self, our self without mind, without senses, without body. That must be our true home. And somebody says there's something more. How can there be? Then another perfect living master comes and says, no, you are not a soul. You are totality of souls. You are one soul participating in the multitude of souls. And multitude of souls are not separated. Now here I must tell you, when I was young, somebody gave an example of the spiritual path. He said spiritual path is that our soul has been separated, a drop of ocean has been separated from the ocean and is trying hard to get back and merge with the ocean. That our spiritual journey will be the drop, that is our soul, will go around and merge in the ocean and become one with the ocean. I thought to myself, what a bad deal this is. If I am a drop, at least I have some identity. By merger I lose it. What do I gain? And moreover, what does the ocean gain by one more drop in it? It's not a win-win situation, it's a lose-lose situation. I don't gain anything. I lose everything. Ocean doesn't gain anything. I couldn't believe this kind of spiritual path. But I was wrong. It took me years to find out the drop in the ocean is a correct thing. But the drop never left the ocean. The drop was always in the ocean. It was the ocean who began to constrict his awareness to be a drop of any size. It could become a small drop or a big drop. It is within the ocean. When it expanded its awareness to a full ocean, that's what the merger is. That the drop realizes it's the ocean. And it's not separated from it. We are always a part of the ocean. But our awareness is separated to the level of a drop. And once the spiritual path then made sense to me. It's an expansion of awareness, not losing anything. It's gaining everything. So you gain your true knowledge of who you are, and that lies beyond the point which we call Par Brahm, beyond the creator of these three universes. In Par Brahm we discovered we are the soul, and go above to totality. We find we are all one. That's the true home that we have. So somebody wrote to me that you say you can't know which is the end. How do you know what you describe as Sachkhand is the end? There may be more beyond that. I agreed. I said there could be more. If somebody shows me more, I'll follow it. I'll definitely go for it. But according to experience, mine and others, it doesn't look like there's anything more, but I'm open to it. It's not that I'm not open to it. He said, but how do you know that you are not talking of the first, second or third stage when you talk of the fifth? I said, I discovered one distinction in every stage, and that was a very vital distinction. I found that time, the experience of time is totally different in each of these states. And that has convinced me that there's a way to know where you are. In meditation, you can have an experience and not know where you are. I'll tell you how to know where you are. Just by a simple test of how time is flowing there. In the physical level, time flows only in one direction, at a fixed pace, and you cannot change it. Our time is governed not by our experience, but by our watches and clocks. If I am having good time and 2 hours pass and good chatting with friends, and I say, oh, maybe, 2 hours passed. If I do meditation for 15 minutes, it looks like 2 hours. Our subjective experience of time is different. But we don't believe in the subjective time here. We believe in the clock and the watch and the calendar. So here, time is flowing in one direction, generating the experience of what has gone as past, what is to come as future, and what's happening now as present. This division into past, present, and future is the nature of time in the physical universe. Of course, There's a catch in that, but most people don't catch it. The catch is that present, which we say is happening now, cannot have time, because it's now. Before I utter the word now, it was future. After it became past. Where was the present? Present has not even a billionth of a nanosecond in it. Present has no time whatsoever. It's just a meeting point between what we call the future and the past. And yet, everything is happening in that timeless now. And we think it's time flowing in one direction. How did that happen? How does it happen that we only live in the now? Even our past is a memory in the now. Future is a hope of the future in the now. And now has no time. And we say we spend so much time here. The reason is that the immediate past is being called present. What has just happened, we are calling present. We are not calling that which has not happened as present. We are calling what has just happened as present, and actually it is past. Now, you will notice what is past is past. What we call present is also past. It's an immediate, just recent. Recent past is called present. And what about future? If there were 3 words struck from the dictionaries: hope, fear, anticipation. They're actually the same thing. Hope is positive anticipation and fear is negative anticipation. If these 3 words are struck out from the dictionaries, there's no future at all. We create the future with these 3 words. We don't realize it. If we don't hope for something, we don't fear something, there's no future. Where does the future come from? And in order to hope, in order to fear, you need time. Every hope requires time, it's in the past. Every anticipation is taking place in the past because it's taking time, therefore it's in the past. The truth is the future, what we call future, is also the past. So past is past, present is past, future is past in the physical plane. It doesn't look like it because of our own assumption that this is not past. This is present, and we're giving a time to a present which doesn't exist. But still, the experience of past, which you can never have. Nobody can experience the past, it's gone. So how are you having it in the now? We're having it through memory. There's no other way to know past except through recall. Memory is the only way by which you can know the past. And can you imagine the life which we think is so real is just a recall, just a memory of something that happened? It didn't happen here anyway. When you understand these things through experience, you discover what kind of illusions have been created around us to create a reality here. These are basic illusions creating this reality here. Therefore, at least we feel that it's happening now. It cannot happen now. It has to happen. Then if it happened somewhere else, then it must be replay. Memory, if something didn't happen here, happened somewhere, we are recalling it, must be replay. If it's replay, the DVD is correct. That's what we are playing. We picked up our destiny already programmed, we're just playing it, and it looks like it's going through time. What happens when you raise your consciousness through meditation and withdraw it to an astral level where senses operate as your body, that you can fly because there's no body, physical, material body. You can fly. Your vision is 20/20 all the time because there's nothing to block the eyes. Where your hearing is excellent, where clarity is great, and you are there. What happens to time? You can stop time where you like. You like a certain scene, you can stop it. You can't do it here. Now has a value there. Now has a value because you can stop time on any scene you like. When we were kids, we used to play a game called freeze. We ran around, somebody would just freeze, we all had to stop exactly in the position we were and then move. It was just a game. In the astral plane, it's a reality. It's not a game. So time there which can be stopped in the middle, but it still flows in the same direction. Events take place exactly the same way. But we can know it's the astral plane because you can freeze time. If you go to the next higher level, then you make a very big discovery about time. You find there is no difference between time and space. Just like space is laid out and is static, so is time laid out and is static. Just like if we are sitting here, Minneapolis, and I say I have to go to Chicago, I'm not creating Chicago. Chicago is there in space. I can move from here to Chicago. I can travel to Chicago. I can travel there, but Chicago is there. In time, all events are already there. You can see them. You don't go and create an event, you travel to that event. You really time travel. We don't realize we are time traveling even now. You only discover it in the causal plane, where you see that all events, past, present and future, that were on the DVD were laid out at one time. And therefore, when you travel from event to event, that's the creation of time. Same thing is happening in physical also, but we don't notice it. We think nothing has happened, future is all open and anything may be there. It's all there already. They say the Egyptians could do time travel. The pharaohs could go see things. Some people do time travel here also. But they do it accidentally. Some do it by practice also. There was a lady near Chicago, and I met her at the Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship. She could have prophetic visions. She could see what is going to happen a week later. Some of you might have met her also, I think. I introduced them. And she was psychic with ability which she did not practice or generate, just she was born with it. So she kept a journal of her dreams. And she met me in the East Coast, and then she wanted to come and see me in Chicago. She's living about 60 miles away from Chicago. So she asked me where she can meet me. We fixed a time. I was just here in this country for a little while, living in a little small place. They'd given me a small car to use during my work here. And she had a dream that she was in a big lobby of a big hotel and waiting for me. And she wondered why she's in the lobby. She was supposed to meet me in an office. And then a big stretch limousine draws up. Big limousine, and I step out. And I say, hello, how are you? She recorded this in a journal. She said, this is not possible. Because the poor Indian guy has just come, and where can he have a limousine and all that stuff? So 1 week later, the partners with whom I was working, two young men with whom I was working in a business, they bought a big limousine. And they changed the time of the meeting to one of the big hotels there. And when she did come, we changed the time to the hotel. First she suspected something is happening. And when she waited there, the limousine, black limousine came, and I stepped out, met her. She was so surprised, but she just opened up the journal. I wrote this a week ago. Now, the question is, did my coming in limousine exist prior to coming or not? Otherwise, how could she see it? How can anybody see any future event if it is not already there? If it is already there, it's just like Chicago and Minneapolis being both together at the same time. You just walk from one to the other, you travel from one to the other. The truth is, which you discover in the causal plane, the time is so clear to you what time is and how time is being created, that all events have been placed in space and time in one single moment. And the entire past, present and future of your events, of your DVD are already there, laid out beforehand. You travel from event to event. It's the same as the Egyptian did time travel. We are time traveling right now. We are moving from event to event, but we don't realize it. Causal plane gives you full knowledge, but then another advantage is there. You can move both ways. If you already know, I can go to Chicago and come back. So can you, in the causal plane, go to 2020 and come back to 1950? You can almost make that Back to the Future a reality. That movie called Back to the Future, where you could time travel. Actually, time travel is a reality going on right now. We are all time traveling. Events were there fixed and then we traveled upon them. But the truth of this change in the system of time, that time is laid out like this, and you can travel both ways, comes on the causal plane. So you know where you have reached once time is seen like that. If you go beyond that, there is no time as we know it. Time gets packaged. That means supposing something is stretching here and we pack it very tightly. All events that are created are packaged into single timeless moment. And those are then spread out. Now it's not that there is nothing, all the events are there. Just because our mind cannot grasp how all space and all time can be compacted into zero time and zero space and be pulled out as necessary. That happens when you see your own soul. And you find that the soul had the power of consciousness to generate the experiences through mind like that. This experience you get only in Parbrahm, above the mind. Perfect living masters have come who have taken you to that level. There are two types of perfect living masters. And we, in our language, have been terming them as Sadgurus and Satgurus. Sadgurus have taken us beyond the mind up to that point where they discover the soul and the nature of time being compacted and being produced like this. Satgurus take you further higher up in a state of total timelessness. The time was not necessary at all. That you do not need time or space for the most beautiful existence possible. Now I'm talking something beyond the mind, because the mind can't think of it. That our true home is beyond this. And so I would say there is single directional time here with no stopping. There's a single directional time in the astral plane with stopping. There's a double directional time in the causal plane. There is a timeless time in that plane, and this total timelessness in the top. Nature of time varies in all these levels of consciousness. So therefore, as you experience them, you can know that. These are not things that can really be described properly, but they can be experienced very well. Don't forget, what I'm talking of exists in each one of us, irrespective of who we are, where we are from, what the color of our skin is, what nationality we belong to. So long as we are human beings, we have this entire equipment already set up. It is not man-made. Nobody can claim, I can give you this stuff. It's already there. When perfect living masters come and make you discover what is already there, and they make you identical to themselves. They don't say, we'll make you better. They compare with the philosopher's stone. A philosopher's stone turns iron into gold. But they are not like that kind of philosopher's stone. They turn iron into philosopher's stone. They make you like themselves. This knowledge is not confined only to a few people or any group. Perfect living masters never come to create groups. They do not come here to create religions. They do not come to create any special section of society. They come for the whole of mankind, and they give their message to the whole mankind. It's only after they have gone that we make religions in their names and we divide ourselves. The mind does that. The soul would never do that. So my suggestion to you is, you are all seekers sitting here. Seek, and don't worry. If you have a master, you are not sure. If he says go inside, go. If he says go outside, think twice. The outside is a shadow. Any master who says go inside, go. He will take you as far as he has gone. There is no way he can take you beyond that. And if your seeking is beyond that, you will yourself feel, this is not it. I want more. I want more. When your soul says, I want more, perfect living master will come into your life. Because he comes for seekers. And how will he come? You don't even know where he is. You don't know what he looks like. He'll come through coincidence. Now, coincidences are no accidents. Some of you might know that when coincidences happen, what is a coincidence? A coincidence is a simultaneity of events which has very little probability of happening. That things happen simultaneously, the probability of that happening is so little, and yet they happen. And you say, wonder, how could this happen today? How could you turn the page of a book on the very page which gives you an answer? It was accidental opening of the page. These are coincidences. There was a guy long ago, I'm talking about coincidences, and I had just come to this country on a visit, and they invited me to give a talk. What was the subject of the talk? Life after death. Is there life after death? There was a guy, I can give his name also, Lionel Fishman, a Jewish guy who went to war in Japan, and he married a Japanese girl there, and he came back into California. Then he moved to Denver, and her name was Ty. So Lionel and Ty had a beautiful life. They loved each other, and they had a very beautiful house. They got in Denver, they got a nice car, and one day they were driving, and Lionel said to Ty, God has given us everything we wanted. Nice house, nice car, loving companionship. And as he was saying that, the car ran into a red light, struck by a truck, and Ty died on the spot. And this man was in shock for hospital for some time. And then he began to question that when we express thanks to God, when we are appreciating what He's given us, why would He kill that girl? It's not possible. Then God must be very cruel. And he went to the rabbis, he went to many people, and he got so depressed. A friend of his named Morton had to stay with him all the time so that he could take his antidepressants every 3 hours. Otherwise, he would have committed suicide. He wanted to commit suicide. He wrote letters to his parents who were in Canada, and he said that I can't understand what it is, what's happening. Ty has gone, I don't know why. So he then decided nobody could give an answer. He went to so many places. They said, no, it's just bad luck, or it's just destiny. You should accept she has gone to God's home, which must be better than this home. He said, I don't experience that. In any case, he said, if Ty has gone to God's home, I want to go there and check it out. And the only way to go is to die. She died, I'll die, I'll commit suicide. So he decided to commit suicide. He used to work in an office at that time when this happened in Detroit. He had moved from Denver to Detroit, and he was working on the 6th floor of a building, and he decided to jump from the window and kill himself. Since on working days he couldn't do it, he decided to do it on a holiday. So he said, I'll do it on a Sunday. Office is closed. Saturday some people come. Sunday nobody is coming. He had the keys. So on Sunday he went up to his office and he typed a little note to his parents that I am taking my own life and I'm leaving this note so nobody is blamed. And my reason for taking is that there is no explanation by any rabbi, by any learned person to tell me how a good person like Ty, we are expressing our thanks to God that that time she is killed and taken away. Therefore I am going also. And he typed that letter, didn't complete it, left it on the typewriter and opened the window to die. Opened the window, there was a table next to the window, and as he sat on the window to jump, his hand was on the table, it slipped, and there was a newspaper there. Newspaper with a page opened up, which said, an Indian guy here to talk about life after death. Talking of coincidences. He looked at the paper, how could this be there? This guy is going to answer, is there life after death? I have been asking the same question. Okay, I'll postpone my suicide. And he postponed the suicide. He looked around, he said, where would we talk? The newspaper had a little interview and said he'll be talking tomorrow at the Veterans Memorial Hall. So he said, okay, I have to wait till tomorrow. After a while he realized this was tomorrow, the paper was of Saturday. He said, I am going to miss the talk. He took his car, ran down, took his car and rushed to that place. By the time he rushed there, I was already talking, and he stood at the back of the audience and waiting to see what I'll say. And the questions he had put on the typewriter were the questions I answered. So he was very impressed with that. And he said, I must meet this guy. After this talk, I'm going to meet him and ask him more. But I was living in Boston at that time, in Cambridge, and so I had just come from there for the talk. So the president of the association who had arranged this, we were halfway through, people were shaking hands with me. Now this Lionel told me himself that he came up very close to see me close and then went back to stand in the line for shaking hands and talking to me. And he stood in the line. When half the line was over, the president said, time to go to the airport, and took me to the airport. Others could not shake hands, not even Lionel. He couldn't even talk to me. I went back, and my wife was waiting with me in the dinner in Cambridge. I was studying at Harvard, and this man said, how could this guy pull me out from that window and answer my questions and then doesn't want to see me? He must meet me. But I don't know where he is. He asked those people in the hall. They said, we don't know. They just hired the hall for a talk, and we don't know where that speaker has gone. So there were some books, spiritual books of the society lying around there, and he bought a couple of books, took them home, and thought, what happened? At midnight he decided that he has to commit suicide in the morning. If I know that much, if I am really aware that the message was for him, then I should also be able to hear what he is saying now. And therefore he said, listen to me, my friend. You called me, gave me the answers. Now you had to meet me. If you don't, tomorrow morning I'm going. He said this loudly. And he banged near the bedside, and the book dropped and opened, and found that there were addresses of representatives in different places, including Detroit. He called that number, and the president and his wife were alarmed at night. Who's calling at 12 midnight? And they said, what's happened? He said, a question of life and death. Do you know the guy who spoke today? He said, of course we know. Where is he? He is in Boston. I am driving right now to see him. He said, no, you can't drive in the midnight. And no, it's a question of life and death. If I don't drive now, I'll die. They got very alarmed. What kind of guy is this? So they called me after midnight. Received a call. Who's calling me at night? And they said, there's a guy who says his name is Lionel Fishman, and he's going to die if he doesn't come and see you right now. I said, let me talk to him. So I said, give him the phone. I'll talk to him, because he went to their house, and he took the phone. I said, I understand you want to see me? He said, yes, immediately. I said, I'll only see you if you have patience. And he said, what do you mean patience? I said, you have to wait for 1 month. If you can wait for 1 month, I'll see you. I'll come myself. If necessary, I'll come to Detroit. 1 month later, I'm coming to Chicago for something from Boston, and you can meet me there in Chicago, or I can come to Detroit. You have to wait. If you can't wait, go and die. That was too much for the fellow. Nobody had ever talked to him like that. He said, I have to wait. He said, I have to now wait. So he waited. He waited. I came to Chicago, and he was waiting for me outside. I gave a talk in Chicago, and he was not attending the talk. He was just waiting outside in his car. And my wife came with me, and there were 2 friends of ours in their car. He said, you will drive in my car. I won't take you to Detroit. I said, okay. I said, I have to go to Detroit anyway. There is a association here called Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship, and their governing board is going to meet me in Detroit, and they made an appointment, so I'll go with you. So I sat in his car. My wife sat with the other two girls following us, worried constantly. Is he going to commit suicide? My wife was worried my husband will jump with him in the car on the cliff, that he's going to drive both of us over the cliff. And he said, I have many questions to ask you. 110 questions to be precise. And I have written them down. And because I knew I have to drive you in the car, I memorized them also. So I am going to ask you these questions right now. And I said, we are still in town. Let's get out of the city at least. This is too risky, with the traffic like that. And there was that Skyway in Chicago. We had to cross the Skyway. I said, we are going Skyway. Let's go out of the town, then we'll talk. He said, but I don't have time. I said, it'll take so many hours to reach Detroit. You have plenty of time. He said, no, but I have too many questions. I said, okay, then start. But before you start, let me tell you a few things. So I told him about suicide. I told him what happens and where the souls go, where disembodied spirits live, and what they do and how they come back, what's the role of suicide in a karmic pattern, things like that, which was very commonplace for me, but they seemed to sparkle his eye a lot. And then I explained, about 10 or 15 minutes I talked to him. And then he says, he begins to smile. He smiled and he said, I am going over all those 110 questions. Some of them you just answered. Others are not relevant. I have nothing to ask you. I said, that's wonderful. Let's stop for coffee somewhere. We stopped to the next cafe on the highway, and my wife and the girls ran. Are you okay? Everything okay? Is he going to throw you over the cliff? I said, no, he's okay too. You can talk to him. So we drove very peacefully to Detroit, and there the SFF members were sitting there. Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship people were sitting. President was a lady, she was sitting there with 5-6 people. He said, you must come to my house, which is a little way from their house, before you meet them. Is it okay? He said, let's ask them. So we stopped there, and I told them there's a man who was almost dying with suicide attempts and all that, so I am going to spend little time with him. He wants to show me his house, where he says his wife, Japanese wife, Tai, has left the house exactly before she died, and he not changed anything. Just to see his wife, he sees her work kitchen and tea, if she was serving tea, everything is lying exactly as it was. He wants me to see. They said, okay, we'll wait, you go. That group was sitting there, 7-8 people, you wait, and we went to his house, and he served us tea. My wife would have served you like this. Both my wife and I, we both went there. We were served tea and liked the place. We didn't realize his house was not that near. By the time we came back, it was almost midnight. And the meeting in the evening was 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. I said, they must have gone. And I didn't have an idea that you can telephone and call people here. It's coming from India. So I said, they must have gone. When we came back, they were still waiting. And so I apologized very profusely. And they were sitting in about 7 chairs, president in the middle and some other members of their board. And they put one chair for me to sit and answer their questions. They had some paper in their hand. So I sat down, and while apologizing, I told them what I understood, the meaning of self, fellowship and frontiership and all. I tried to explain to them what real self is, what this is. Took about another 15-20 minutes to give a little small explanation of these terms. And this man is standing behind me, Lionel Fishman. And then the president looks at her questions, and she says, I have nothing more to ask you. Anybody else has any questions? She turns around. They say, no. This guy starts laughing loudly. He says, I'm only standing to hear you say that. that boy then followed the spiritual path, went back to Japan, had a very different life, kept in touch with me. I'm only mentioning this whole story to show the power of coincidences. It was one coincidence after another. And so when coincidences happen in our life, they are not accidents. They carry the message with it. And I'll tell you another thing. People ask this question, we want to live in God's will. What is God's will? Isn't everything God's will? Is the whole show running with God's will? That how will you live in God's will? Whatever you're doing is God's will. Keep on doing, have a good time. It's all God's will. No, we distinguish it. Maybe God himself distinguished it. That there should be a God's will and there should be a mind's will. And we distinguish it by calling, this is a manmukh who follows the mind. There's a gurmukh who follows Guru or God. So what's the distinction between the two? To live in God's will or live in mind's will? If your mind thinks and decides something, that's mind's will. Whenever you make a decision with your mind, it's your mind's will operating. If you make a decision without the mind thinking about it, it must be God's will. Intuitive flashes that come and make you lead to decisions without thinking are God's will. Coincidences telling you what to do is God's will. When your mind makes decision, it's mind's will. If you alter your life's pattern only slightly, watch for coincidences, watch for intuitive hunches that come to you, and base your decision on those, you are living your whole life in God's will. But if you think too much and worry too much, then you are living in mind's will. So one can make a little shift in this thing. The best thing is that if you watch coincidences very closely, you will find they match the intuitive hunches you get. You get an intuitive hunch, it should be like this, and you drive your car and there's a sign saying the same thing out on the road. Your gut feeling says, I must do this. Mind says no. Gut feeling says do this. Mind says no. And you open a page, the page supports what your gut feeling is saying at random. These coincidences, they match. So God's will is not so silent as we might think. It's really vocalized in all the signs you get around. It's expressed in the intuitive hunch you get. Because the intuition comes from the soul. It comes from reality. It does not come from this illusion of karma and all that. So one can always guide one's life like this. Rumi was asked, Maulana Rum was asked about this. He said, that's not a big difficult question. What is God's will? If God has given you a spade in your hand, He has expressed His will. Dink. If He has given a pen in your hand, He has expressed His will. Right? The circumstances that He's created around you are an expression of God's will. Just follow them. But if you start to dilly-dally with your mind, no, should I do this, not do this, and the mind is saying do this, and this other part of mind says not do this, then you go into mind's will. Now the beauty is, only mind's will creates karma. God's will does not. Why is that? God's will does not create karma because there is no application of free will at all. There is no experience of free will in living in circumstances that come by themselves. How it is related to karma is, it's past karma being paid off and cleared. Whereas if you think and make a new decision, you're creating a new karma for the future. So therefore, that has been a question. How do we know this? What I hit somebody. How do I know I created a new karma, or this guy hit me in the past life, therefore I hit him paying off an old karma? The answer is, if you now decide with your free will to hit him, it's new karma. But if you hit him by accident or otherwise, it's old karma being paid off. So the distinction is that where the experience of free will is coming, you are creating karma. Where free will is not in action and things are happening without your decision making, without your deliberation, they're old karma being paid off. Now, if you paying off a karma, it's happening by itself, and you try to perpetuate it by thinking, now this guy hit me, now I'm going to hit him back. No, he may have just paid off his old karma. So when you start thinking about it, if you accept this, understand this a little better, this law of karma, you'll find that you can reduce the level of karma for the future to a great degree by living in God's will and making decisions based on circumstances, what they come, based on coincidences, changes your life. Incidentally, initiation by a perfect living master has this one feature in it, that when a perfect living master, I'm keeping on repeating perfect living master, that means one of the highest level, totality level. When a perfect living master accepts you, initiates you and says, I'll take you home, when he gives you this guarantee, at that very time, he destroys all the old karma except that which creates this current life. What we call reserve karma or sinchit karma, which could not be accommodated in any life, is still waiting from where it can be pulled again and again to create more lives. That is destroyed at that very time. Therefore, since your life is only based on karma of this life, and you can make it so much karma free by living in the will of God, by living through coincidences and gut feelings, that you really don't need another life. You go back home much smoothly and much easily. So all these changes can take place through a spiritual lifestyle. Spirituality is not just meditation at a certain time. Spirituality, the spiritual path, is a lifestyle. It changes your lifestyle. You start living differently and you are much happier. One of the reasons you'll be happy is that when you have an inner experience, fear and doubt go away. You discover the mind creates both these. The mind creates doubt. Soul has no doubt, ever. The mind creates doubt, and doubt creates fear. They both run together. So imagine a little practice of going within your own self, discovering who you are, makes you fearless, and gives you a sense of certainty about everything, and no doubts about anything. What kind of life would that be? Changes the entire life. You feel you are on top of the world. And you remain on top of the world, no matter what karma, no matter what circumstances. You see them as they are. They're just part of a show, part of a payoff of old karma. So we can really change ourselves in a very big way just by the practice of meditation under the guidance of a perfect living master. In my experience of a lifetime, I have not found anything better. If I find, I'll let you know. And if you find, you let me know. I'll follow it. This is not a closed cult or something. Don't think that this spiritual path is ever a cult. A cult traps you into it, doesn't let you go. This is a free search, free seeking. Go and search. When my master accepted me, he told me, go and search anything better than what I've given you. If you find, take it. Don't come back to me for my permission. Permission granted in advance. But do one favor, come back and tell me also. I'll also take it. It's this kind of openness about the spiritual path. It's not meant for any particular group. You have to belong to a group or you have to belong here or there. It's a search within yourself, not a search outside. Of course, if you meet like-minded people, like to discuss these things, that's okay. That's useful because our mind is leading us astray all the time from this. So it's good to meet people, have a satsang, get together. But getting together is not the path. The path is within yourself. All the answers to all your questions are inside already. You will not have to ask any question if you go within. So I'm going to have a little break for a little while for all of you. And after a short break, if you like to ask any questions and answers, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay?